Welcome back to the garage. Welcome to another video. So, this is actually kind of a video being made in a video, if that makes sense. To you guys, the viewers, the previous video on the channel was me welding and locking this rear axle. So now that I have a nice solid welded rear end and no more limited slip. In my time, I'm still actually working on that video. I have the diff cover curing right now with the gasket, so I don't have the fluid in it, and I'm not done filming that yet. So I hope that video turned out well, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. But while I'm waiting for that, I got a box in the mail, a box from Motobilt, and I'm super excited to hit to the next step. So I wanted to be, more comfy and more capable for this year. And with that, I have my PRP seats from the Project YJ. Now, I know I shouldn't be taking parts from that, but I actually want to go a different route with that Jeep for the seat and interior. So I figured, why not, since I already have these and they're just collecting dust, as you can see, why not put them in here? They have heated seat options, and they're just a little bit more comfy than the seats that I have here. Now, these aren't bad. I think they're a Jegs, just bucket suspension seat, but the bolster is a little high, and with how high the Jeep is, you got to get a little extra oomph over it. Those have a little bit flatter bolster, a little bit more cushion. But the biggest problem with these seats is they are mounted to the factory YJ seat mounts or brackets. And if you can tell, that angles the seat up really high. The bolster of the seat is up over my hip. I don't have a grab handle yet. I'm going to work on a cage add-on to give me a handle here. But right now, I got to throw myself up and get in here, which, again, it's not too bad. But here, the front of the seat kicks up so high that I have to get myself up close to the steering wheel just so I can get the clutch in completely and reach the pedals, without any issues. And what I found out last time I had this out wheeling, when I was on an incline, the angle of the seat, I felt like I struggled to reach the pedals, and I wasn't as comfortable as I probably should be. So let's go look inside that Motobilt box to see how we're going to fix this issue. This is Motobilt's PRP seat mounts for the YJs. So everything is actually meant for the factory locations on the YJs, but the angle of the seat bracket will flatten out a PRP seat and just gives it some more beef. It does come with some PRP universal sliders, so that makes the seats slide. And then with the PRPs, I have the Enduro Elites, so they actually recline as well. So I'll be able to get sliding and reclining versus having just sliding right now. And the seats will be leveled. So with the kit, it comes with everything you see here, 2 sliders, the mounts, and a bunch of hardware. Let's get these seats out, the brackets out, so we can see the floor, see what we're working with. All right, good morning. It's a new day, it's a new month, but we're back in the garage. I got my helpers here. It's a beautiful sunny day. And yes, so with work, I had to go out of state for a while. I was in Texas and I was in Virginia, and it just, unfortunately, it's been almost 2 months now since I've been out being able to work on the Jeep, unfortunately. But you got to do what you got to do, and we'll get back to it when we can. So we're back to it, and where I left you off, we were taking the seats out of the YJ and prepping to get the PRPs in. And I actually do have the passenger side in. So I figured I don't need to show you guys both. And that was a good way for me to understand the whole system and setup and how everything works. And it looks dang good. I am so pumped to get these PRPs in. I've bought these years ago and have never used them. So getting a chance to use them. The Motobilt seat brackets work like a charm, and I'm excited to get the driver's side in. So that's what we're going to work on. I have all the driver's side mounts here. Everything is painted with some Steel-It. Yeah, I just had it laying around, and I love the color of the Steel-It, so it works. We have all the raw metal painted, the sliders and everything, and then over here is the seat riser brackets, which are still raw because, as you can see, the mounts without the risers put the PRPs nice and low, and it's actually works really well in this YJ. So didn't worry about painting them because I'm not going to use them. So we got all the parts, and then Motobilt is super kind. If you go on to their website under the seat mounts, you can actually print out the installation instructions. They're in color, and they make life super duper easy. So if you get this, just make sure to go to the website and print out the instructions if you need it. But all right, let's stop talking, and we'll get these installed and get these seats wrapped up. So Motobilt did a hell of a job on contouring and doing all the math and science you need to work around the factory YJ floor, and it just makes it super easy. So here on the driver's side, unlike the passenger side, all 4 of the factory seat mounts are threaded on the passenger side. But on the driver's side, you have this front one and this back one, which are pretty much just holes, and then you need to do a nut on the bottom, and then this one and that one are threaded. Now, unfortunately, Motobilt does not supply the floor bolts to mount into the factory holes. You can reuse the bolts from the You can reuse the bolts from the factory mounts, except you'll still need to find 2 bolts for those rear holes because those are pressed in studs on that bracket. So since I was going to replace them, I'm just getting all new hardware. Dug through my my scrap bolts here, and I have 2 bolts for the holes and then 2 bolts for the threaded holes already. Pretty sure these are 9/16 by 3/8. Don't hold me to that. But yeah, so first step is going to get these floor brackets bolted in, solid in place, and then we will move on from there. The floor mounts are super solid and bolted to the floor. So the next step is, if you're going to use sliders, which the kit comes with it, so you'd be, smart to use them. So sliders will go on next. And the sliders come with all of their own hardware. So the hardware that Motobilt supplies in the bag actually is really only used for mounting the seat itself to the brackets, or for the riser brackets on there. But if you're not using the risers, you only really need 4 of their supplied hardware to bolt the PRPs to the brackets. The rest of the hardware comes supplied with the sliders. So now, looking at our picture, again, Motobilt does a great job at orientation, colors, everything you need. All the information is there. So brackets are in. Next is the sliders. They have permanent studs, so all they do is just go down through the holes there, and we use that hardware to tighten it up. Now, notice how these holes are not just holes, they are oblonged. There is a ton of adjustability left and right to kind of work with the different style seats. So as I go into this, I'm going to get them snug-ish, but not super tight, just so I can move and get some measurements, which you guys will see here shortly. I'm going to try not to block the camera, but limited on my space. So that's simple. Washer and a nut, and these are nylon nuts, so that's nice also to help things from rattling loose. 1/2 inch, we're going to get these sliders snugged on, and then move on to the next step. I'm not going to bore you with this. Stand by. Sliders are loosely mounted, so we're good. Next step, the brackets have these supplied carriage bolts, and we have square holes here, so can't get it up in there, so you have to move the slider forward, get the carriage bolt in, move the slider back, and then it's kind of a little tricky because they want to drop down and kind of get hung up inside the slider rail. So, but you got to do that for both ends, kind of. Pull the slider lever, and here's the front one. This is what I'm talking about. So you need like 3 hands for this. I know I can run the bolts down to kind of cinch them up, but I just prefer to struggle through life. So keep that bolt. Okay, now I gotta pick up on the front one. So carriage bolts are now there, and the slider is in its dead center position. And we're gonna want that way when we do our cross brackets, that the sliders are equal, not getting bound up by one being too far back or too far forward. Sliders are loosely in there. We have our carriage bolts in there. We're gonna have our actual mounts that we bolt the seats to. Get the carriage bolt in place on these rears. Washer. Nut. Washer. Nut. We have this cross bracket with the hole there in the middle, and this hole is for mounting your crotch belt. So if you were using a 5-point harness, you can then mount your belt there. So that uses the front carriage bolts as well from the sliders up through both the seat mount brackets and this bracket. So get that up there. And that is really all the components that I need for my setup, because I want my seats low. If you're using the riser brackets, you will then use more of the supplied hardware and mount the risers to, so the risers get mounted to the outside of these using these bolts, and then you can adjust it, angles, tilt, height, all that fun jazz. All right, I'm good with that. All the parts in, they are loose. And this is where measuring is going to come into place. So the bottom of our PRPs here, we have our seat mount and our other seat mount. We are right at 14. So we have 14 inches from inside to inside of the brackets. I tried to see if we could mount the seats to the inside of these brackets, but there's not enough adjustability from the thickness of the metal. So that means that our seat mounts, as you can see over there, go on the outside of these brackets. So that means that from outside to outside, we need to be at 14, and right there we're at 13 3/4. So we need to adjust them out to be I was doing like 13 7/8 if possible from outside to outside, just to give a little bit of wiggle room when setting the seat down, but obviously no more than 14 inches from outside to outside. So we're going to do that. Once we have 14 both front and back, cinch everything up, get it all tight, and then we'll lay the seat in. We are all but done. Everything is tight, adjusted. But before we put the seats in, we have this nice supplied metal, I don't know, rod or wire. It's fairly thick. So what this is for is to tie both of our slider releases together. This is why it was important when we were putting it together to ensure that both sliders were in their neutral center position as we tightened everything up. So now we're going to connect the slider handle to this other slider, release. So the best thing to do is take one end and bend it and put a hook on the one end. So from that, we're going to pick one of, there's plenty of different holes here, so you pick what's best for you. I go to this furthest, it hooked to that side. I'm going to go to this furthest hole on the handle. That way the leverage is right. And you can trim this, but what I did was, in case I needed the extra, I kind of just loosely bent it around. And then kind of made sure it was flat. Take another pair of pliers. Now I'm just going to pinch the wire tight. To give it a test, we should pull the lever and it should release both. And now we can slide. Perfect. And just to keep myself from getting poked from reaching under the seat, I'm just going to take a little bit of electrical tape and then just wrap the wire together. And now I won't have anything poking my hands or the bottom of my seat. Out of the supplied hardware from Motobilt, we have these 4 bolts, nuts, 2 washers per, washer inside outside. This is a 5/8, yep, 5/8 bolt and nut. What I've found at the passenger seat is if you have a swivel socket, that works the best to get kind of around the Jeep and inside and out. But it is, you gotta like lay in the back, turn upside down, get all these bolts lined up. So it takes a little bit of time. So I'm gonna time lapse this, though you don't see me struggle for 5 minutes. Well, there we have it, and I think that looks damn good. These seats are just so much better than the other ones. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with the other ones, but there's a reason that the PRPs are top of the game right now in seats. If you remember from the beginning of the video, the bolster of those old seats with the factory brackets made it pretty much above my hip bone, and now we are below the hip bone. So it's much nicer to slide in. They don't have to jump as much. The seating angle is just flat and more comfortable. The seats sit lower, so now I have way more head space, especially once I start tying in some more cage in here. I just feel comfortable. It feels good. The Enduros can recline, so I can get an optimal wheeling position, which is nice. And with these brackets, I can slide still. So overall, this is a 11 out of 10 upgrade for this Jeep, and I'm loving it. Motobilt brackets made it easy. Seats are in. Now it's time to wheel. I need to get this thing out. I have not had it out of the garage since I welded the diff. I have seats now, I can drive it. So as I was installing these, you've probably noticed some tape here on the floor. Sam was over the other night, and I was kind of telling him an idea of mine to take one of these Summit bucket suspension seats I have. Instead of just making it sit around, I think I'm going to try to mount it center here. That way I can put a little toddler booster seat, and Chase can go ahead and ride and turn this into a 3-seater. So it's a whole family rig. Yeah, I'll probably do a video on the custom toddler seat edition. So with that, that'll be in another video. But for now, you guys enjoy your weekend. It's beautiful out. Get out, work in the garage, work in the Jeeps, go outside, wheel. Whatever you do to make yourself happy, do it. I will clean up here, get the Jeep squared away, and then at the very end of the video here, I'll throw in some clips of it moving and grooving with the new seats and the locked rear end. But with that, thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next video. Have a good day. Good job, bud. You shifting. You shifting. You can almost reach. So proud of you. Looking good.
If you can just go through that, you're up.
Still gotta get.
Bill.
What? Driver? Helper driver? Second driver. Forward driver? Yeah, if you start coming off this ledge here, you got like this far before your tire starts to roll off. I know it feels weird, but... Not my up there, I can't. You're good. You got it. You're clear.
No slip at all.